Howdy, all you delicious people. Let's go on and right away state three things. So, the last Doctor episode, I stated that, Ben needs to go on and find, the perfect leap for him. And bizarrely, we have the following week where that happens. What a coincidence that I stated that. And so, we end up having to take hiatus to go on and get to that leap also. Isn't that great? But so, the second thing would have me have said in the past that I would have liked for Ben to have leaped into multiple people in one episode, and bizarrely that also happened in this leap episode. And then we have this third thing where I was like, you know what, I really do like time loop repeated day movies, and bizarrely that also happened in the same episode, telling us that more is not enough for this show, that they need to have even more. Man, that dialogue also. The dialogue almost sounds Shakespearean. Like, to be or not to be, there is no blur the minds of the swings and arrows and outrageous fortunes. Yeah. The dialogue is to come off so Shakespearean that I'm like, what the heck are they even talking about? We have at one point where Ian talks about how, he feels that the AI Ziggy cannot be trusted anymore, that Ian has to go on his own dime, his own time, and start to research, because who knows when Ian lost trust from Ziggy. Might have been in the pilot episode, it might have been 2 minutes before he came over to these people and was to state, hey guys, I was just randomly doing some research. So I'm just kind of thumbing through, just... And I guess I have to have something to come up with here for something to tell you guys. Because who knows how, thorough these people are really going into and having importance with Ben's leaps. We can really just state that Ben is to be up Craps Creek without anything. A paddle, a boat, anything. Because we went into a swim in it, and then we almost killed each other. Because that's where Ben is now. That he's almost going to kill his chuthers. His others. Yeah. Which is just him. Because he's by himself in the dark. Waiting for nobody to have real solid information. And then he'll probably die. Because guess what happens in this episode? So, we have both the AI and even Ian's information Ben can't trust. Ben cannot trust anybody's information that he is getting told of what is the real reason why he's even in this leap. And so Ben is basically effed. We have people talking in Shakespearean nonsense to have some part of this episode where I'm like, are they talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife? Are they trying to promote that here in this episode? Are they trying to promote the Patrick Swayze movie Ghost? What's going on here? Here is also my thing. Where is Leaper X? We have Janice that is to have had 2 episodes. And they even right away for Janice to be involved in this story. But not to where she's really coming up with some real key game breaking thing that immediately saves Ben right away, and he's like, oh man, thank goodness we just had Janice here, Because if she wouldn't have said that one thing, I wouldn't have leaped. We just go on in the end, just have Janice and even Magic who are just like, well, yeah, let's just put all our chips on Ben. Let's just go all in with Ben. And, like, he'll just get us out of this story. Man, the real weight that Ben just has to just, like, have on his shoulder of the show to really have it all be about him. Just making it through these things, because who else can help him out in this scenario? Anyways, so we have this show of this episode specifically that goes beyond even the worst episode that I've ever seen of Quantum Leap ever. And that would be a grading of awful. This episode is to go even Bed Bath & Beyond that. To have me have to go into a grading of, like, either Whoa Man or frickin' Mega Crap. Like, whoa, at some point... That's what I feel I have to kind of jam those two together. Just, like, they're gonna have to just be that. For beyond awful. So... Whoa, you're doing a thing! Wait a minute there. I don't know, it'll just become all of that. Because this episode is just all that in a bag of chips. So... we... have reached a new level of awful. And I don't know how it happened, but here we are. So, we have an episode that is a deal with this time loop. And so, Ben is to die in this episode early on. And then he comes back and has to leap into another person to be tied into the same story, but people aren't even going on and saying word for word what Ben had said when he leaped into that other person. So whatever Ben did is, like, meaningless from prior leaps. It's just now that Ben is to need to figure out who done it because they already did it. And so now Ben has to scramble out of all these people that have all these different qualifications of how Ben could use them to the full benefit of trying to figure out who is to have this bomb that is to detonate and kill people off. And we have to find out that somebody within that elevator had put together this bomb, because that's always the reset point, and there's a whole point of that. So yeah, so this episode is very hard to explain, but also once I get into dialogue, it'll be even harder to explain, because we have at points where Ian goes on and is a status like, well, hey, like, maybe if you're not the evil person that we thought you were, maybe we're not the evil people that you thought that that we were. Janice, man, do they really go on and like have like Janice be like the right person at the right time for this episode? What a coinkydink. Yeah, the story has a thick layer of convenience for itself. It's ridiculous. Like, everything about it, it's like, man, like, why can't we just have had Ben be the perfect person at the leap that they figured out something? Oh, because the story won't allow it. Oh, okay. Whatever, story. Anyways, let's go on. So this is 1962, as if that really matters, because it doesn't. So we have Ben that leaps first. Let's go into spoilers. Let's break it out. Let's slap it out. Let's just dance it out. You know what I'm saying? So we have Colonel Jack Parker. That's how much I'm just like, blah. I just want to get this out there and I want to get this done. I really just do. So we have Ben, who is Colonel Jack Parker, and so Mallory is to ask the Colonel if he's ever seen one before, and the Colonel should have immediately responded with, "Yeah, I've seen a big fat one. I've seen one that is so long that it smacks onto the ground and it just becomes a kickstand. It's incredible." And then Mallory would be like, "What the F are you talking about?" And Colonel's like, oh, we're not talking about the same thing. It's just, why not? But instead, the Colonel just goes on, as Ben, is to say, "Seen what?" And so Edwin states that they're running a little behind, and Eugene states that everything looks good. We also, I think, have Joe, who's the janitor, that's kind of whistling in the background, whistling Sweet Dixie. So Edwin, the doctor, is to go on and show everybody this nuclear reactor, and then to this control room. Mallory interviews Edwin about winning the Nobel Prize and asks what his demonstration means after winning that Nobel Prize. Like, well, what is this a real equivalent of? And Edwin goes on to mispronounce Mallory's name, and then is to say that this means a lot to humanity in the future. And so Ben is to figure out what is really going on here, and it's recycling nuclear fuel. And then we, of course, have Addison show up. It's like, yeah, like, this is really your jam. You know exactly what's going on here. And so the doctor goes on to state that it's, well, yeah, like, I get that there's a lot of, like, bells and whistles and buttons and knobs to look at all over this place. But really, starting a reactor is like turning on a TV. So if anybody could go on and turn on a TV, you can work at a nuclear reactor. It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. So Ben is talking to Addison about all these geeks being in one place all together. It is to remind Ben of the first mission of Quantum Leap. So he remembers that at least. But he doesn't remember, like, how good Addison was in this act. That's a shame. Maybe she was amazing. Maybe she was mind-blowing. Who knows? We'll never know. Anyways, so that's how off the rails this episode really just goes for me in my brain right now. So Addison is to go on and state that they can't time travel from 30 years till now, and Addison is to find out that they shut down the nuclear reactor today of all days because it actually doesn't work. And so Addison is to go to Jen because she wants more help on information. And so how is that going to go horribly awry this time around in this episode, right? How is that going to go horrible? So Ben is talking to Eugene, and Eugene makes a joke about how atoms say goodbye. And they say that they gotta split. We have Ben that starts to laugh. He's like, "Oh my god, that is such a good joke. I'm gonna have to go on and tell my fiance whenever she comes back here this joke because it's incredible." So Addison goes to meet up with Jen, and so Jen finds out that Edwin, the doctor guy, is to have a heart attack. And so immediately Addison's like, okay, like, that's all I need to know. Like, I think that Ben is going to have to be here for this Edwin guy to stop him from having this art attack or to try and help him out in this situation. And Jen is like, well, wait, whoa, just hold it up a minute. So Edwin makes a statement about going to the moon in the near future. So in the further future, they're probably going to have flying cars. And we have Ben who's like, I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Might as well just put stock in Enron. You might as well just hope that at some point there's going to go on and be a Mountain Dew called multiple color. A multiple color Mountain Dew. It's going to happen sometime, right? Maybe rainbow color Mountain Dew. I don't know. Like, really just put your bets on that one. So Eugene is to run out of ink from his pen, and Ben gives him something to write with. And we have Ben who notices in the Colonel's outfit he has these letters, or this letter. So Addison is so focused on Edwin's heart attack that she doesn't really care about anything else. But Jen is like, hold on a minute. Jen has reports of Mallory, who is to die roughly around the same time that Edwin had died from a car accident. And then the Colonel also dies from a weapons discharge. Eugene dies from an overdose. Mo, who is the janitor, dies from an electrical accident. And so with all those deaths happening right around the same time, they come up with the conclusion that this is a government cover-up. And Addison is again like, oh my god, I need to scramble to tell Ben this. Ian, get my imaging chamber online so I can tell Ben all this information. And so Ian is just like, I'm scrambling. So Addison desperately wants to tell Ben what is going on. And Ben, as well as everyone else in the room that he is in with all these people, is doing this countdown. 10, 9, 8, pop that champagne, baby, pow! To start up this nuclear reactor. And so we have Ben that is to look at some buttons, some knobs, and some things, kind of like turning on the TV, right? And it's to state like, yeah, that doesn't look too good. Should that be doing that? And Edwin is to realize that the coolant is draining. And so right after that, we have the reactor explode. And so Ben has flatlined. Ben is now this thing called dead. So Magic is to bust out, like, why is Ben flatlining? I promised to bring him home. While also Addison should have been with Ben that whole time and was with Jen instead. Because why is only Addison looking into Ben's leap? Why, I ask you? But then also we come to find out that Ian is also looking into information about Ben's leap also, which we'll find out much later. Because story convenience. So Ian was even looking into Ben's leap, but he just didn't want to say anything until, like, he thought it was more proper, which was way too freaking late. A year ago. So Addison is to whip out this scream. And this scream, in all honesty, it's horrible to say this, but I laughed during the time of which she was to scream. I really do like the actress, but that scream, though. So, right after Addison screams in agony of Ben being this thing called dead, they realize that Ben is actually alive. And they're like, say what now? And Ian says, that's not possible. That can't be true. Yes, Luke, I am your father. And Ben is to now be the Eugene guy. And when Edwin tells Eugene they're running behind, we have Ben that doesn't have the answer back to Edwin about what Eugene had said prior. It's like, oh no, hey, yeah, we're good. He doesn't say anything. He's just like I almost just died. You, Edwin. So Mallory asks if there's Mallory asks the Colonel if he's seen one before, and the Colonel answers only in pictures and talks about his kid's ballet recital. And Edwin states it'll all be worth it in the end. Sure it will when he's dead. For how many times that he's going to die in this episode, it'll be really worth it. It really will. To miss out his kid's ballet recital because he's dead. So Ben is to call this Groundhog's Day, or at some point he'll go on to then reverse that whole thing and call it some other day repeating movie, which I didn't even understand what the heck he said there. If anyone has ever gone on to see what movie that Ben was talking about, please, comment in the thing and tell me what the movie was, because like, what the heck did he even say there? And also, if you've seen that movie, let me know what it's about. You don't have to tell me the whole story, just kind of in a very short term, tell me it was a movie, and that'd be great. It was a movie once. It came out this year. That's great. Anyways, you could say yay or nay about it. I don't know. I've never heard of the movie that Ben was talking about, because there are some times I haven't seen it all. So Ben asks, so Jen asks Ian about how Ben isn't dead because he should be, and Ian is like, how about you do a shola? How about you just be a little quiet? How about you just give me a little bit of time? Because I need to go on and have some lines here. So Ian mentions they're dealing with a time loop, and Addison needs to see Ben to make sure that Ben is even still alive, and so she goes into the imaging chamber and they just let her go. So Ben meets Addison, and Ben thought he was dead. Addison explains Ben's in a time loop, and Ben finds that highly improbable, or impossible, or implausible. So Ben realizes he needs to fix the reactor, or it'll blow any minute again. And Ian and Magic are coming to that same conclusion, where they kind of, word for word, almost say certain same things. Ian knows someone who has the most information about time looping, and that conveniently for the story ends up being Janice, because would it be Leaper X? No, so it has to be Janice, the only person that they have just kind of lying around that might be smart about things. So Magic goes to Janice. Janice is unwilling to help. Magic tells Janice that Ben will be stuck into this time loop forever, and Janice needs to help she needs to help Ben if it isn't part of Janice's ultimate plan. So if Janice needs Ben's help and needs him to get out of this time loop, Janice needs to help him get out of here. Janice will only help this one once time, because Janice is Doctor Strange, and she is, of course, telling Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Dormammu! Anyways, so Joe picks up cans, again the janitor, because I think at certain points I'd gone on to even state that Joe has a different name. I think at one point I called him Max or something like that. I didn't know, I don't remember what his name was at certain points of this whole thing. There was so much stuff going on, so much brain fart throwing. So Joe picks up a can as Edwin does an interview. Eugene, who of course is Ben, tells everyone they need to leave. The whole place will explode. Edwin tells Eugene / Ben everything looks fine, and Ben needs to recheck numbers, but pages are missing. And immediately I'm like, well, the Colonel has a letter. This guy has missing pages. Something seems like there's a connection there. Immediately I was thinking that right away. So the Colonel tries to light up a smoke, and we have Edwin was like, really? Like, you're going to go on and light up? You're going to kill us all. So the Colonel's like, oh, okay, I just won't light this up. So Ben forgot about the pen, as he also forgot that the Colonel had a extra thing to write with, because Ben, when he was the Colonel, was to give Eugene a thing to write with. And so Ben is like, oh, no, oh, I don't know what to do. So Mallory goes on to ask Ben if this place is unsafe. Edwin says that this place is safe. It's just that Eugene is to be suffering from nerves. Ben forces Edwin to listen to Kennedy's speech. It's like, well, hey, like, you really want to go on and like see the president like talk because it's really important to you. Eugene asks about hazmat suits, and Edwin doesn't really give him a clear answer. So Ben states like, well, hey, I'll just figure something out. Edwin talks to Mallory about the moon and flying cars. Yet again, we get the same thing. Joe is mopping the spill. Because again, even that spill is to come into a factor into this episode. Really just a janitor just mopping this one spot. It comes into play. So Jen has to look up time loops for magic, and she comes up with Bupkis Nothing. Like, hey, like, I watched Groundhog's Day and I got nothing. And so Magic is like, well, luckily we have Janice, who is our time loop expert, to just kind of figure things out for us. Luckily, the convenes the story. So Jen says this is weird convenience that Ben gets stuck in a time loop that only Jen, it seems, is to be the specialist for that can answer this. And that's, again, when I was thinking of the Doctor Strange come to bargain thing, and yeah. So they also realize that there's nothing more worse that Jen could do at this point, because Jen has already tried a number of things anyways. Magic says we are looking at Janice as a supervillain, and they shouldn't. And if they were wrong, then Magic will take all the juicy, succulent blame that he can possibly get out of this. But bizarrely, we have in the later part of this episode where Jen, when Magic is to say this now, Jen is like, no, like, you can't just have all the blame. We as a team need to have all the blame. Everyone here, blame it on. Come on. We need to share in that blame because we're a team. We're a family. Everybody gets that blame. Everybody has that loss. Everybody has to grieve. Yada, yada, yada. So Ben, with a hazmat gear on, is looking for something that is unsafe within this nuclear reactor. and finds a bomb, because Addison is to point that out to him, because at least Addison can do that. Ben realizes that someone inside this place had to have rigged this bomb, and of course he's not coming to the conclusion that it's the guy who can go in with this hazmat suit to go into this place and plant this bomb. And that would be the guy that, of course, Ben is in right now. Because if it seems like Ben could get access because he's Eugene, then maybe there is a whole idea there that is just churning in Ben's brain, but it's just not clearly coming quite yet. So why would anyone try to cancel an energy recycling project, Ben asks. And in my brain also I was thinking, like, well, what if Edwin did? Like, Edwin, really thinking about it, has done, like, a Nobel Peace Prize accomplishment. And what else does he have really left to live for? He doesn't even have a kid. He doesn't even have a license, Lisa. This guy could croak and, like, leave nothing to really nobody. Because the only kid is to really be this project that he has a brewing. So, Ben talks about wire cutting, and Addison says there's no wires to cut. This is a completely different kind of bomb. So, Ben tries to do something that just leads them to have this bomb trigger and release hydrogen and oxygen to create a big massive explosion that wipes everybody out. So Addison rushes to the team to tell them the explosive wasn't an accident. Someone in the elevator must have had to have planned this bomb, and that's the meaning of the reset. Which, of course, Ian somehow figures out. Ian was getting data because he doesn't trust Ziggy. That's when this part comes. So, right out of the gate, Ian is, like, really should have said before this mission even, like, pops off. He'd be like, you know what, I don't really trust that Ziggy. Like, you know what, like, yesterday, like, he was really looking like a cool guy, but today, he just looks like a jerk to me. Maybe he should have, like, alerted anybody that, like, Ziggy Boo? No, he didn't. He didn't say a word. Good for him, right? That's a smart idea. So, we can trust, so we can't even trust the workers either to, like, let people know things or get data, because they give it to us way too late. Ben is effed. That's basically what I stated right here while watching this episode. Addison realizes they need to figure out who in the elevator has a detonator to the bomb, and then Ben will finally leap after that mystery is to be solved. Ben leaps, Ben's leaps need to be convenient for the story and where it's heading. And so Ben, of course, is to leap into Mallory. And Ben is to need to investigate all these people anyways to figure out who the culprit could be. And because Ben is to be a reporter as this character anyways. So Ben first interviews Edwin if there is anyone who wanted to see this project fail, and Edwin doesn't have a really clear answer. He's like, well, hey, there's always healthy competition, ha 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 ha. And so Ben asks Edwin, it's like, well, do you have anyone to leave this project to? And Edwin says, like, no, like, this project is my baby. And so, yeah, like, there's nobody that would have any real ill will to Edwin unless maybe somebody that he, like, stiffed from not getting a Nobel Prize, because that also could be a thing. I would go on to, of course, see that in a Ben 10 episode somewhere in the early season 1 episodes. Ben goes on to interview the Colonel. The Colonel isn't interested in unsustainable energy. He has no real dog in this fight. He really could care less. But the Colonel is to do his job anyways, to keep this place safe from outside things that would try to want to go on and sabotage what they're doing here. And when Ben is to try to ask, like, well, who could that be? We, of course, have the Colonel that really has just a garbage answer. So, Ben then is to interview Eugene. Eugene has worked with Edwin for a very long time, since probably him just being a baby, just falling out of his mom. Like, immediately Edwin was there. So, Eugene went to some convention where Edwin was winning all these awards, and Edwin was to tell his mom, like, someday I was going to work with that guy, that Edwin. And weirdly enough, he ends up doing that. Some goofy thing. So, Joe, who of course is to be janitor, Ben interviews him. Joe had gotten all these science fiction books from his fiance, and so helping him being a part of this reactor project has him feel like being a part of those books, just trying to connect all these things together. Ben's got nothing at this point, and could the journalist really be the person who was to pull the trigger and murder everybody? Ben thinks that's highly unlikely because this woman is really hauling around some heavy recording equipment. And why would she have that heavy equipment, realizing that no one is ever going to hear these interviews, or knowing that she's going to die? Why would she be carrying all of this around? Because she really just has, like, this back tolerance of just, like, her back can just take everything, I guess. Mallory did a recording even before any of the other interviews that she had gone on to do today. And so Ben is to listen to it, and Mallory is talking to Edwin and wants to expose him. And so Eugene sent some letters to Colonel about Edwin. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I was when I was here. Addison takes a minute with Magic, because Addison is to be out of the imaging chamber. And so Magic is like, well, hey, you can go on and take a minute. Like, how much screen time have you already had in this episode? You can take 2 minutes. So both of them are starting to talk about Ben dying. And so what I said here is, it feels like every line is just to be repeated over and over again, maybe in a different way or a different approach, whatever, but it just feels like a lot of stuff is just to be repeated here, as well as halfway through this show. So Ben didn't die. Why does it feel like he did? Because when you gotta get up, you gotta get down. Because you need to stretch the episode with words. That's what you need to do. Ben's a ghost, Patrick Swayze style, because he's not there for them. Addison's a leap mourner, it seems. She's mourning that leap just so badly. It's crazy. Magic is to seem to hold on to Sam coming back, as Addison needs to hold on to Ben coming back to her. Magic is talking about not wanting Sam to go into that light, because evidently I want to just talk about Poltergeist and Ghostbusters Afterlife. Don't go into that light, Carol Ann. Stay there. It's all nice and soothing in that light. Because I don't know what the heck you're doing. Just Sam, just hold on. Maybe you'll come back for a cameo. Maybe a brief little thing. You'll get quite a bit of money, but yeah, like you'll be in this show, which is, it is what it is. If only we could have just had Sam just give us one like farewell season with Al or something, just before Al passed away. The actor who played Al, my bad, I don't remember what his real name was. Let me know in the comments below what his real name was, because I like comments, it's great. So, Ben is now Edwin. So, Edwin talks to Mallory about this place possibly being a forefront for something. And Mallory had her phones tapped and people being bribed off to not work with her. Mallory doesn't want her sister involved in any of this. And so Ben, as Edwin, is to realize, even as the most powerful person here, which is Edwin himself, there is nothing Ben can do without triggering this bomb by warning people, by telling them, hey, like, don't touch anything, anybody. Just put your hands up and do the hokey pokey or something. Just don't trigger any bombs. They're going to trigger them anyways, because they just have to. It's in their nature. So, and Addison is there for Ben while he's talking about this. About how he's the most important man, and even he can't do anything. Addison states what can be the worst: triggering a bomb or dying for it. And I would go on and add to that and state, if they were all in on it and they knew they were going to die, that would be even worse. If every one of them were just like, yeah, like, trigger that bomb. That would be worse if you went on and found out that every single one of these people were some kind of off. And they're just like, yeah, like, blow that mother. That would be worse off, I feel. So, Ian and Janice are sharing a coffee, and Ian tells Janice, like, well, hey, like, I didn't poison it. I'm not evil. I might play an evil character on another show, but, like, that's a different time. That's a different place. So, Janice tells Ian, it's like, well, hey, I gave my mother a sedative. I didn't give her a poison, so shut up, Ian. Addison and Janice are to be the same, says Ian. So maybe Janice is wrong about them as they are about her. And when you know where you're going, that's where you are. And I wish you were here. So Ian is to look into it, and Ziggy is to rationalize in his AI computer that is a flip of a coin, basically, that there is a good chance that either the physician or the janitor is most likely to be the killer, because Ben hasn't leaped into them yet. And why does Ziggy come to that conclusion? Because Janice realizes that the time loop will end after Ben stops leaping from every one person that was originally in that elevator with Ben. So the security guard Ben will not leap into. It's whoever was in that elevator, those number of people. So Ben is talking to Addison, and Ben realizes that he only has one leap left, and he's openly talking to Addison during this time about this conversation that they're having, because Ben will realize after this next leap he will really be dead if he can't figure out who this culprit is. Ben is talking to Addison freely because everyone's gonna die. They're gonna explode because Ben still can't figure out. So Ben, who is now Joe the janitor, Ben wants to rush to disarm the bomb and tries to go back into the place that Eugene was before, while Ben was him. And the security guard is to come in and be like, oh, no, like, hey, man, like, you can't be here, like, you don't have the qualifications. And Addison's like, oh, crap, like, yeah, you're not in the right body to do this in. You don't have the right qualifications. So Ben realizes that he has all the keys that he needs to kind of do what he needs to do. So the security guard calls Edwin about Joe maybe being a problem, and Edwin tells the security guard, like, well, yeah, like, what do I pay you for? Take care of it. Ben remembers movies, but didn't remember his marriage past any number of leaps. Ben knows about The Longest Day. It's some movie from World War II, Normandy. I think at some point I like a review to like a World War II kind of thing and whatever. And okay, for the life of me, I probably didn't even remember where any of that was. But anyways, so Joe or Ben finds thrown away papers telling us that the reactor will make nuclear weapons. The colonel is to whip out this gun to Ben, and so Ian figures out Ben doesn't have enough time to figure things out. He needs the time loop. Jen wants to pull the plug, but they don't know what'll happen if they do that. It's like, well, it could kill him, or it could just restart this thing all over again, and Ben could have endless time if they just keep pulling the plug every time that Ben can figure this out. And so Janice and Magic want Ben to finish the leap. So, like, I guess that kind of rules over, like, okay, like, let's give Ben a chance. Like, let's give this boy a chance. I think that he can dance. Whatever. Anyways. So the colonel asks if Ben is a spy because he keeps getting these letters about kill the project or I will. As Ben is to read these letters as they write. Ben is to look at the paper of these letters and immediately knows who the killer is. So Ben rushes to where all of the peoples are. So Ben noticed missing papers from Eugene's thing of him writing down all of these things from analysis and whatever. So Eugene knows Edwin wants to make nukes out of this place, and Eugene wants to save lives by sacrificing his own. So, also, when we realized that the detonator is just this pen, it immediately reminded me of that 007 movie of the exploding pen, where the guy would keep going on and like clicking it, and then we would desperately have like Pierce Brosnan who's like looking at the guy, it's like, please click the pen one more time, or that pen's gonna explode. And so finally, when like Pierce Brosnan is like effing off somewhere, the guy finally like clicks the pen, and then the pen finally explodes. It's great. It's magnificent. It's a pen explosive thing. Maybe that's where they got the idea from. They stole it from James Bond. So the pen had never worked for a reason. The pen of the ink never worked. There was a whole reason behind that. I was like, oh my god, like, wow. Ben even realized that he himself, as Eugene, had triggered the bomb by accident by simply just clicking on this pen because he didn't know. So Eugene isn't stopping anything but a group of a group that all have plans, and the only lives he needs to save is all of theirs that are here. The Colonel is to shoot Eugene. Ben grabs Ben grabs you. I think Ben grabs Eugene. Edwin blames himself for all this because technically he was the guy that put this whole thing together. He put this project together. Eugene states that great technology will be the end of us, and just you wait till Skynet comes online. Madison gives an update of what all is to happen with all these characters, that Joe will write a story about this one day. Mallory's story will blow the cover off of this whole place. And so Ben is to stop what Allison is talking about. And so Ben feels, from what Eugene had just said, that Quantum Leap is to possibly be in danger. Are we the good guys here? Maybe there's a reason why Leaper X is trying to come on and stop them. Maybe Janice is having a valid reason for her doing what she's doing. And maybe they don't realize it. Maybe they're blind to it. Maybe they are the bad guys. Because they should be. Every single one of them. There is some goofy alternate quantum lump dimension where we have evil Neb. Evil Neb is gonna come in and wipe out Ben. Why is this taking so long? I don't know why. Anyways, Ben goes on and is to try that joke on Addison and tells her how to Adam say goodbye. And when Addison tries to answer, Ben leaps. Magic talks about how this was a really long day. It's like, could you imagine all those actors that have to go on and repeat those lines over and over and over again and don't even remember them doing it? We had Edwin who goes on and falls because Joe didn't clean that one spill, and I didn't even mention it in this whole review. So he just falls and plah, plah, plah on the ground. So Jen asks, why did Magic side with Janice? And Jen says the choice we make affects all of us and our family, which is to be everybody love everybody. Magic should have had Janice here all along. When Janice's mother even wanted her not to be, And they're now having to deal with the fallout of that decision that Janice's mother made and Magic accepted instead of going, no, 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 like this girl, like there's something about her. She should really be here. And we have Magic that goes on and states, like, man, if we could only have gone back and leaped to change that past. Yeah, roll my eyes just severely as if they're going to fall out of my face. So, Janice will give Addison a name of a person that made Ben decide to leap. And so, we now even find out that the whole manhunt for Janice was a massive waste of time because that's just going to lead us to another clue and another clue and another clue. And it's never going to end. So, we realize that Janice is a wasted character. Who knows if Leaper X really has any value? And so, with that said, I'm just going to get the F out of here. I apologize for how long this review was, but I'm going to get the heck out of here now. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. I know that this was like 44 minutes and I spent 55. My bad. When looking at it, these things are once a week. And I know I've said that. I know there's a lot of times where I would try to make these things shorter, but I end up getting them long anyway. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, bye.